Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If we could have a roll call for attendance, please.
Jason Brandt.
Here.
John Larkin.
Here.
Allison Pinkett Floyd. Kristen Osmondstad Walsh. Virginia Carlson.
Here.
Ken Marshall.
Here.
Sue Wiggins.
I did not receive any notes for public presentation tonight, so I think we are good there.
Not either.
If we could get a motion for adoption of the agenda, please.
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
I second it.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have no unfinished business, so we will move to new business in item A, which is going to be a presentation for Midwest Environmental Consulting Services. So I'll turn it over to our presenter. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. Can everyone hear me through the microphone?
Yep.
All right. My name is Blake Robert with Midwest Environmental. We are the environmental consultant for the library on this particular project. The documents handed out in front of you are a bid review. So what we performed already, the inspection and due diligence services to find the hazardous materials in preparation for the demolition project of the former Mr. Z's property. What this represents is Midwest already created a abatement project design, identifying all of the known asbestos-containing materials throughout the building that must come out prior to the demolition project. We then facilitated create the scope of work of how that happens. We created a public bid for the actual abatement, which is the document we're looking at right here in front of us. All these 9 contractors showed up to the bid walkthrough and they submitted these bids. This is for the removal only of the asbestos abatement. Hussar Abatement was the low bidding contractor, and we are deeming them the lowest responsible bidder. Right after the bids were received, Midwest Environmental scanned all the documentation. We went through and made sure that they received all of the, they submitted all of the correct documentation in order to bid on this project. They confirmed that they are comfortable with their number and they understand the full scope of work, and they are standing by their bid, which is wonderful. That being the case, we are recommended that they are the lowest responsible bidder for this project. We are anticipating just about 4 weeks worth of abatement work to get this done. I do want to draw attention to alternate bid number 1, and there's a couple things I want to clarify there. So that is for the roof abatement. It is assumed to be positive for asbestos. At the time of sampling, we do not have permission to actually drill a hole in the roof. So we did not sample it, so it's called assumed. And the second point being, you're not in Cook County, so you don't have to test the roof or abate it or you don't have to test it. You can assume it as asbestos containing, and then your demolition contractor becomes aware of it and they can handle it. If you are in Cook County, that would not be the case. You would have to test it and find out through laboratory analysis. Okay? Does anybody have any questions that I can answer regarding the bids and proposals?
I have one. You're confident with their references. You've checked them out thoroughly. They are able to do the work, and you're confident they will be able to do the work.
Yes, sir. We have personally worked with USAR on large and small scale projects.
Perfect. Thank you.
A couple of items. The base bid, that is a bid that does not include the roof. Is that what you said?
That is correct.
And then the alternate bid number 1, that includes if the roof has. Now, it's possible the roof doesn't have asbestos?
It is possible.
Okay, so that'll, of course, be tested before any work. I mean, they'll test it, and if there's no asbestos, we just knock off that amount of money, right?
So because you're not in Cook County, you can assume it to be a positive, and we just have to treat it as such. And then your demolition contractor, when they come time to actually work on that roof, they have to let their crews know that it may be containing asbestos, and they will dispose of it properly. If you elect to not test it, you are absolutely within your legal right outside of Cook County to do that. But if you want to test it, you can. But if we don't test it, we must assume it as positive, and then your demolition contractor will treat it as such, and they have to notify their work crews.
How much does testing cost, and how long does it take?
So the testing itself, it will only take maybe 30 minutes on site. We take a boring tool, and we actually take a core of the roof. So we do have to punch maybe about a $half size hole in the roof, and we send it to a lab. It takes about 5 business days to get back. It's probably between closer to a $700 cost to analyze it.
Well, wouldn't it make sense then to do the testing? And if I know you say we assume it's positive, but if it turns out negative, we save $53,000, don't we?
So if you choose not to award this alternate bid number 1 to the abatement contractor, it would just go to the demolition contractor. They may have a different cost just to dispose of this roof as part of their demolition project, but it's all your decision.
Either way, we have to pay for it.
Well, I guess I'm misunderstanding. The $53,000, that kicks in only if the roof has asbestos in it?
If the abatement contractor was to take off the roofing system,
Okay.
that is the only thing that that number represents.
Okay, so if we have it tested and there's no asbestos in it, then the abatement contract does not take off the roof, and we have to get some other contractor to take it off?
Right, it wouldn't be part, the roof in no form would be part of their contract.
Okay. Okay, so, and we didn't bid out the roof separately?
Not as part of our involvement.
Okay. Okay, I guess I mean, that's a lot of money if we don't need to do it. I mean, although I don't know, what would, simply taking assuming that we just wanted to remove the roof, leave the asbestos out of it, do you have any idea what the cost would be just to do that?
Well, I can only speak from the abatement side. Abatement contractors removing materials that are not asbestos containing just generally tend to be expensive. If you were going to have somebody else just remove the roof and it wasn't coming down with the rest of the building, I would fully anticipate a lower cost than what you're seeing on this first line here, 100%. But abatement contractors are expensive just to remove materials that are not asbestos containing. But if you had a roofing contractor that just takes off the roofing system, I would certainly expect a lower cost. Or if it's just coming down with the general debris of the building, that's an option too that may fall into another demolition contractor's bid package.
So it sounds like typical for DuPage County is to have your demolition team take care of the roof as part of, whether it has asbestos or not. They're equipped to handle that piece of it, but the interior and stuff like that, you need the abatement team to handle.
Exactly correct. Yep.
Okay, so whether or not the roof has asbestos in it, they're gonna charge us the figure that's shown here to take it off. If they discover there's asbestos, or if they simply don't test, like you said, they just assume there's asbestos in it, and they charge us this, whether there's asbestos or not, we're assuming that there is, and that's what the alternate bid one is here.
The alternate bid number 1, so that $53,000, you would only be charged that if you wanted to have Husar actually remove the roofing contents. If you assume it and we leave it as such for the demolition contractor's purposes, but Husar is not doing any of the removal of that roof system, you are not getting billed for any of that. They will only be billing the base bid.
Okay.
That is really more of it. The assumed term is really only an informational piece for your demolition contractor, because that's going to determine where the waste is actually going to go to when they start disposing of these materials when the building starts getting demolished.
Okay, so the abatement, they go in there and they remove the asbestos, they don't touch the structure at all. I mean, they don't bring the building down. They just,
Correct.
once they're done, they leave, and then somebody else comes in and says, okay, now the building's asbestos-free, now we take it down. Is that correct?
Exactly. So the abatement contractor, the materials that we're going to be abating is primarily leveling compound, drywall, and the components of drywall, the drywall itself, the tape and the compound. I know there's some floor tiles, residual mastics, and that's really throughout the building. Those are the materials that the abatement contractor will go in and safely remove, get them all out of the building so all the hazards are gone. And then once those are all gone, then your demolition contractor, crews, and trades can come in now that they are safe of hazards, being asbestos. And at that point, you can begin your true demolition process.
So again, I don't want to beat this horse to death, but if there's no asbestos in there, we have a test, there's no asbestos, the building stays intact, the demolition contractor comes in and just knocks it down. If there is asbestos, then the abatement company removes the asbestos on the roof in addition to the rest of the building.
No, Ken. What we're saying is that the abatement company with the base bid here will remove all the interior asbestos from the building.
Correct.
Then we will have the demolition team take care of the roof, whether there is asbestos in there or not. And we're thinking that based on history, it's much more efficient to have the demolition team take care of that, the roof, because they're already tearing apart the rest of the building, and they will just dispose of the roof properly.
I don't think is that correct? I thought that if the if, he said, we'll have the demolition company take care of the roof, whether there's asbestos in there or not. Well, if there's asbestos in there, they can't do that, can they? We'd have to call the abatement company back to do
They
that.
can. For roofing systems outside of Cook County, they can do that. They have to notify their workers that it may be asbestos containing, so they have to notify their work crews, and then they will dispose of it as such, knowing it may contain asbestos. That they are within their trained and legal right to do so. Absolutely. That is correct.
Well, my feeling is that maybe we should do a couple of things. Maybe we should have the roof tested. You said it's less than $1,000 and it'll take 5 business days. And then if there's asbestos in it, okay, then we go ahead with whatever we decide here. If there's not asbestos in it, we don't have to pay the extra money to have the asbestos removed from the roof because it's not there in the first place. They just work the interior of the building. They don't do anything with the roof, which means that we save this $53,000 because they're not touching the roof. Is that correct?
Not necessarily. So you're absolutely right. You can go ahead and test it. Figure out for sure if it's present or not. Without a doubt, that is 100% correct. If you get a determination and say it is positive, you can still elect to not have Hussar do this work, and then their only bill that the library would see is this base bid. There would be nothing on their bill or their invoice referencing the roof, because they would not be performing any of that work. At that point, it would be a piece of information to the roofing contractor or your demolition contractor saying, we have tested it, it is here. That may not drive down their price because it may contain it, or it may not, or if it is confirmed, they're still going to dispose of it as if it were assumed without actual laboratory results.
So we really don't need to get it tested. We need to approve the base bid at $93,000, let the demolition company deal with the assumed asbestos and get it knocked down that way. Then problem solved.
Well, but if the demolition company, and we don't have prices on them yet, I assume, but the demolition company says, wait a minute, there's asbestos, instead of X dollars, we're going to charge you X plus Y dollars because there's asbestos in that roof.
But they're going to charge you that anyways.
Are they going to charge extra because there's asbestos in the roof, a demolition company, or not?
I personally can't speak to that because we're not involved with the actual true demolition of the structure.
Well, and I think what you said earlier is that it's cheaper for the demolition company to handle any asbestos in the roof. It might help if you identify why the bidders were asked to go ahead and include this alternate bid. Mm-hmm. Is that something that would carry forward for the demolition crew, so that we would say, $53,000 for them to do it, and our demolition crew says we're going to assume asbestos, it's $38,000, and we're like, fine, that's great. This is really more for our reference and comparison. Right. When the demolition company either assumes asbestos if we don't test, or tests and finds asbestos if we do test. Mm-hmm. But these are reference points to assure that our demolition company is not going to overcharge us for roof asbestos. Am I right?
That is correct.
Thank you. So it's a reference point so that when we get to the demolition company, we know what they're telling us is in range and should be lower than what we're seeing here.
Okay, well, if we pay the abatement, the base bid, $93,000, okay, if we pay that and they work it, it's substantially lower than the other bids here. Then we get to the alternate bid number 1. Now, if there's asbestos in there, as I say, now we're saving the $53,000. But if the demolition contractor says, I would have taken the included the roof for the X dollars, say $30,000, but because there's asbestos, it's going to be $60,000. And so now we're paying more than we would be paying for this alternate bid here because there's asbestos in there. And can the general demolition contractor demolish the roof knowing that the building knowing there's asbestos in the roof?
Absolutely, they
Yes.
can, 100%.
And what you said applies. It's 2 separate dump trucks hauling things away.
The roof goes in certified landfills.
Okay, and
So-
we don't have a problem with local ordinances or county
Nope,
ordinances.
state prevails over all that.
And that's where, if you don't test and you assume it, they're dumping it in a different dump truck, hauling it to a different waste site versus the walls and everything else. So this is a reference point, Ken. I think the important thing to understand is you're approving the base bid tonight. And if we were to need to come back for this alternate bid, I think we would come back and revisit it with the board. Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank
Okay, so the only thing we really have to do tonight then is to approve the base bid.
That's
Is that what
correct.
you're saying?
The asbestos
Is that correct?
Sir.
Okay.
Well, then I'll make a motion to approve.
Wait, one more thing. Does this base bid include the smaller building too, or is this just the big building?
This is for only the former Mr. Z's property.
Okay, have we just discovered if there's asbestos in the smaller building?
A very small amount.
I can answer that, and I actually have the numbers, and the numbers fall within our approval to sign off independent of a board vote, but I can tell you what they were because they were in there. Base bid from Kinsale was $13,450, Valor was $14,700, Cove remediation $23,000. So those prices are under our $25,000 clip level. So we have the reference points here to go ahead and have that work done, but it's not something you have to vote on tonight.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm sorry, John, you.
Oh, that's fine. So then I'll make a motion to accept the base bid from Hussar Abatement Limited for the amount of $93,000 for the asbestos abatement at the former Mr. Z's property. Do I have a second?
Not any more discussion? Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Jason Brandt,
Yes.
John Larkin,
Yes.
Allison Pinkett Floyd, Kristen Osmond Walsh, Virginia Carlson,
Yes.
Ken Marshall,
Yes.
Sue Wiggins.
Motion passes.
Get them out there.
That's right. Anything for communications?
No, we had nothing.
All right, then we can, just for, do we have an estimate time when they would start?
Yes, and in fact, I brought that, and you can answer this too, but I brought our notes from the board meeting earlier. We said you present your recommendation tonight, you approve it, and the remediation work period was set to be April 4th through April 30th.
Okay.
So we hope by the end of April, the remediation work is done.
Would that include,
That abatement work, I'm trying to make sure I use that.
and that would include the other building independently? That'll also be done during that time period? Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Okay, I think we are adjourned then.
We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Wow.
And just a point of reference, if I remember correctly, when we tore down the house next door, it had some asbestos in it, and they tore it down without a problem.
All good.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I remember. That was a long time ago.
We are adjourned.
Well, I was here.